welcome back to Chaos in the Margins. My name is Shalana Battles, and today we're going to talk about writing when you don't feel inspired. I think it's a really important topic to talk about, especially for authors who are really trying to build a business and sell their books full time and do all those great things. Talking about like writer's block and pushing through when you don't feel inspired. Treating writing like a job is a definite shift in mindset, because most authors that you talk to have been writing forever, right? Their whole lives. They remember writing when they were little, and all of that's fantastic, and they have these very inspirational stories about when their stories hit them, and just having journals or handwriting things, and all of that's great, but that's a very different mindset than writing as a job. So that's step one. I would say if you are doing writing for you, if you don't really care about sales, if it's more of a hobby, that's fine. You can definitely be more relaxed with it. Write when you want to, write when you feel inspired. What I'm talking about today is building a business and wanting to sell books, maybe wanting writing to be your full-time job, because that's a different way to look at writing, and it's not always fun. And so let's talk about that, because there are days like you'll start a story and you're very inspired and you love it, right? And then you get to the middle, or you have to go back and write the beginning, or you're in the editing trenches and it's not so fun anymore. And more often than not, that is when we get our next idea. That is when our brain is like, ooh, what if we did this? And you're ready to move on to the next project. That is the difference. Because if you're doing this just creatively and for fun, move on to the next project. But if you're really truly trying to finish a book and publish a book and sell the book, you have to finish. You have to finish a full project, start to finish, right? Other thing to point out is writing is work, right? If you're taking this approach, it's work. And if you always have to feel inspired, you're never gonna get anything done. That's a hard pill to swallow, okay? Like, let me show you. Okay, well, this is the first 3 books in the Grand Mesa Men series that I am currently doing final edits on. Okay, this is not fun for me. I don't enjoy this. But it has to be done for the books to be published. And that's kind of what I'm alluding to here. Like, do I feel inspired when I'm sitting down doing this? No, not necessarily. Sometimes when you're editing, you're like, ooh, I could throw this in there. I could spice this up a little. And that can be fun. But the majority of it, it's work. You're doing it to finish the book and finish the project. It's not really inspiring. It's not necessarily creative and not as fun. So that's the other kind of dose of medicine here, is that doesn't taste so good, right? Is that it's not always going to be inspiring. It's not always going to be exciting. The other thing that comes into play when you're treating writing like a job is you can't say, oh, I'm going to write when I have time, or I'm going to write when I feel inspired, because sometimes you won't feel inspired and you won't have time, or you won't be making the time. And this one is big, especially for other indie authors like me who are moms, or indie authors who work jobs outside of writing, or have families or other obligations. I've talked about this so many times, is you have to prioritize the writing. And the crappy part is once you publish something, you also have to prioritize the marketing. Not my favorite. So I've started using weekends to set up marketing for the week. I have a social media manager, so she takes a good chunk of that off my plate. So planning for those things. How are you going to show up and market your books? But just looking at writing, just writing. Make time for writing, and make realistic time for writing. Don't be like, oh, I'm gonna write at 5 p.m. if you know you're gonna be like picking your kids up from school at 4 and getting them home and unpacked and this and that and the other. Like, that's not a good time. Like, so with moms especially, or people who have jobs, this is gonna be harder because a lot of times it's going to be super early, right? It's going to be before everyone else in your house starts their day, or it's going to be really late and you're going to be the last one in bed. So I've done both, and I kind of just go with what works for me for that specific week. But there are times, my son is homeschooled. We start school at 8:30 at my house, and I will get up at 5 or 6. I've gotten up as early as 4, depending on what I need to get done. So I have those hours before my son wakes up and before our homeschool day starts. Or I'll put my kids to bed and I stay up 2 or 3 hours later than them so I can work uninterrupted. It's not fun. And it's not always what I want to do. But even last night, I sat at my desk till 1:30 in the morning working on edits because I need to finish them. And so slotting that time is going to make a huge difference. And treat it like work, right? If you work a job now, or you have ever worked a job, you can't really just be like, I don't wanna. Like, I mean, you could, but at some point you'll probably get fired. Or at least reprimanded, right? So treat it like that. Treat it like you can't say no. If you put down, I'm going to write from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It doesn't have to be every day. Pick a schedule that works for you and pick something you can like be consistent at. So if you say, okay, every Wednesday I'm writing from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Treat it like you can't say no. Treat it like you have to get up and do it. Treat it like a job. You don't always like your job. You don't always want to go to your job. And a lot of jobs, you have meetings that, me especially, I'm like, this could have been an email, okay? But I still showed up. So treat it like that. Train your brain to see that thing. And it helps me a ton to put it in my Google Calendar, to put my writing blocks in my Google Calendar with everything else and like my other work stuff, because it feels more real. So try that. Put it in your planner. Put it in your phone. Make yourself like an alarm on your phone if that works for you. Whatever it takes to trick your brain into thinking, this is a non-negotiable. I have this meeting at 3 o'clock and I have to show up. And then you go sit down and you write. And that will really, really help you get into the routine of writing. And like I said, be honest with yourself. Like if you can't write every day because of your life, that's fine. But sit down and think about when you can, and then treat that as a non-negotiable. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention is that done is better than perfect, okay? Don't get caught up in the perfections and in the editing when you're still writing. Finish the book. The draft one doesn't have to be great. It's not even supposed to be great. And that's fine. But if you are editing chapter 1 for months, you're never going to write chapter 2. Move on, okay? And whatever it takes to make you move on. Just know that you can't edit a blank page, right? And finish the project. There are lots of times where I will write something and I'll just put in brackets, like, I need this. Or I write in Google Docs so I can leave comments in there. And I will leave comments to myself all the time where I'm like, verify the timeline, verify the season, verify that I said he was this old. Does he have this eye color? And then keep going. Move on. I don't need to figure that out right then. I can figure that out in editing. So just get the words on the paper. And for me, leaving those comments to myself allows me to move on, because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to forget. It's right there. I'll know that I need to check for this later. So find whatever method works for you that you can just keep moving. If you get to a scene where you're really stuck, and I know multiple authors who do this as well, just put that note there. Be like, I need to write this fight scene, or she has to go to work here, or I need a transition, and keep going. Keep on moving. You don't have to have every single thing from chapter 1 to the end to keep moving. Don't stop because you can't write a scene or because you are trying to edit as you go. Get the stuff on the paper. The other thing is, if you want to publish, you're not always going to love your book. Okay, I love these books. And there's one more I haven't even printed yet. I love these characters. I do. But there are times where I don't love working on them. That's okay. That's normal. And so give yourself the space to know that. Just because you're like, man, this sucks when you're sitting down to write, that's okay. That doesn't mean shelf the project or throw it out or move on to your new shiny idea. Just accept that it's a phase and it'll pass and it'll be okay. There are some projects, yes, where you shelf them, right? If you start working on something and it's not the right time or it just is not working, it's not coming together how you think it's gonna come together, that is perfectly okay too. Shelf it and work on something else. But recognize the rarity in that. You shouldn't, in my opinion, totally my opinion, start a project and shelf it, start a project and shelf it, start a project and shelf it. Start paying attention to when you get to that point. Are you like midway through the book? Do you have your first draft done and the thought of writing a second draft or editing is daunting? Or is it you get through 3 or 4 chapters and you shelf? Like, pay attention to that, because that's something you can work on as a writer. If you know, like, okay, I get 50% of a book written and then I have no interest in it anymore, that's something you're gonna have to train yourself if you truly want to finish and publish a book, to push through that, to find ways to keep it interesting. So maybe you start at 50%, write the second half of your book, and then go back and write the beginning. Or do the bracketing thing. Like I said, if you get to that point and you have half of your book pretty well drafted, do a skeleton outline for the rest and then start filling that in. Find ways to push yourself over that hump of shelving a project, unless it really, really needs to be shelved. But just not wanting to work on it for no other reason than not wanting to work on it is not a reason. So if your goal is publishing, you're gonna have to push through some of those moments. Perfect example with the Grand Mesa Men series. Okay, I'm in the middle of going through all these a few months ago. This has been months, like I think September, October, I could go back and check, but Heart of a Killer, that idea hit me hard. And I wrote 30,000 words in, I think, 2 or 3 days. Like, that book just like bleh, vomited onto the page, okay? That's great, but I literally remember calling my best friend and I'm like, I cannot keep writing this. I'm going to have to force myself to stop so that I can finish the Grand Mesa Men series, finish edits, and get these books published. So I stopped. And that book is at like 33,000 words right now. It is my next project in line when these are done. But you have to do that sometimes. If you have a project that you're working on and that you're trying to finish and you're trying to get out, and it sucks, I'm not gonna lie, because you're super inspired and you want to work on those projects, but you do have to sometimes make those tough choices to see something through before you pick up that next thing. The other thing is just the idea of writing. You can love that. I personally love Pinterest boards, and I love making playlists for my books, and I love doing all of like the extra things. But the finishing a project, that's the part that's work. And I don't want to get too repetitive here, but I do think that it's really important to think about this. I saw a TikTok video yesterday where the girl, I don't remember who it was, but basically she was saying, do you want to write or do you want to publish a book? And not everybody that starts a book finishes a book. It's a pretty small percentage, actually. And that's okay. That's not everybody's path. That's fine. If you like want to just write sometimes on your computer or in a journal and it doesn't ever go past that, that's okay. But for the people that are truly, truly like, I want to do this, you got to give yourself that tough love and saying, okay, I need to schedule out time to make this happen. I need to stick through to the end of a project. I need to do X, Y, and Z so that I can hold my book in my hand at some point. And so that's who I'm talking to today. I'm not talking to people who write for fun or just because they love it. I'm talking to people who not only want to finish a book, but they want to publish a book, because there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I think it's talked about some, but I don't think it's talked about enough, because I think it's really important to have those conversations with established authors, with authors like me who are kind of like in the middle. I've been doing this a little while, but not a long time at all. And people barely starting out, where it's like, this is fun and we do it because we love it, but there's days where it's work. And it has to be work if you're gonna finish a project. What can you do, right? Consistency is a huge one. Schedule in your writing times. Be consistent, stick to that schedule. Make it a non-negotiable. I can't break this appointment. And the other thing is, inspiration is awesome. We all love it. We all crave it, but you have to be disciplined. You also have to be disciplined. I struggle with this in marketing more than I do in writing. And I think that is also something that should be talked about more, is finishing the book. And I said this on Thursday, is great, but marketing is that next thing. I can finish a project, me personally. Like I can start a book, I can finish a book, and I can stick it out till it's done. My issue is the consistency and the discipline when it comes to marketing. And so maybe that's you as well. Maybe you don't have a problem seeing a project to the end. Maybe the issue is that next step in seeing that project through sales. And so this video applies as well. Schedule in time to do marketing. Find people to help you with marketing. Outsource what you can outsource if that is what works for you. And so think about those things as well. Consistency and discipline, regardless of if you're applying this to finishing your book or marketing your book. Those two things are going to be game changers. The thing that I want to leave you guys with is the little quote that I think my dad, I know my dad isn't the person that said it, but he's the one that told it to me, was every expert was once a beginner, okay? Every book was once an idea. And so keep that in mind. Every book, all the books you love, all the books you have written, all the books you're planning to write, right? They all started as an idea. Anything that you are just in love with, it started out as an idea. And the only reason it got to here is because somebody didn't give up on it. Somebody pushed through when it got hard, and somebody kept going when it felt impossible. So give yourself that same confidence, you know, and keep reminding yourself that you can do this. You can complete a project. You can push through when it's hard. Let me know in the comments, what is the hardest part of a project for you? Is it starting a project? Is it writing through and pushing through those hard moments? Is it finishing a project, writing the ending, writing the conclusion? Or like me, is it after all of that's done and sharing the project and marketing the project? I would love to hear more about it in the comments. As always, if you guys have questions about writing, editing, indie, publishing, any of those things, let me know and I'd be happy to answer them for you. Keep writing, keep pushing forward. You got this. I believe in you. If you have a release this month, I would love to hear about that as well. Leave me those in the comments and I will be sure to go check them out. Have a wonderful week and I'll see you next time.